Welcome to IDG Chit Chat Live for the week of March 30th, 2015. On this episode, we will be talking about Sunday's episode of Who Do You Think You Are with Sean Hayes. Hope everyone out there is ready. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Chit Chat Live. My name is Shannon Combs-Bennett. I'm the creative director of the In-Depth Genealogist. Joining me this evening are Jennifer Alford, publisher, Terry O'Connell, executive director, and our Gary's very special guests, Valerie Eichler-Lair of valsroots.com, and Sherry Hudson-Passy, I can speak tonight, of the Carolina Girl blog. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
I should say that some of us are having some Google Foo issues with our internet connection, so hopefully we'll be able to not break up or have to come in and out too often. Just warning everybody out there.
Yes,
and of course,
I've been having a ton of electrical type issues. My cell phone today, the screen died, so between the hard drive dying 2 weeks ago and now my phone, I'm just like, okay, I'm afraid to touch it.
We need to get that black cloud away from you.
I know.
Is Mercury in retrograde?
Mercury in retrograde.
I have no idea. I'll have to ask Jen Hollick.
There you go. Well, for our viewers this evening, this is your one warning that we will be discussing Who Do You Think You Are's current episode. So if you haven't seen it, pause, go watch, and come back. Because we are going to be having a jam-packed full half an hour of lots of conversations. Because it was very interesting to one of our panelists, and she went down the research rabbit hole. But before we get started, does anybody have any genealogy news from this week in the genealogy world they want to make sure that the audience knows about? Any cool blog posts or articles that have come out? Or
Well, I was pretty surprised. I can't remember when this came out, but about the Ancestry.com employee at the St. Louis.
Yes.
I think it's the same thing that tie it to Ancestry.
Yeah, it's just disturbing that that could happen.
You know, I think that happens a lot of places, but what I find really disturbing is that it happened in a government facility with a contractor to that degree. Especially, I think it hits home to historians and genealogists because we're like, oh my God, what if my ancestors' papers were there? I will look for somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, at least
I just paid for all that money to have somebody search it. They told me it wasn't there.
That's right. But you know, at least they recovered it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah. What
Unreal.
else? And somebody retired from Ancestry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, today was official last day for Lou Sukes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's been going around Facebook and all the genealogy sites for a while, so best of luck in her retirement.
Absolutely.
Now she can
Back to working on her own research.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right. Stop working.
Just have fun.
That's right. Stop working for other people and do your own stuff.
Yes.
That ever happens. I mean, seriously. Okay, well, before we get too far into our 30-minute timeline, maybe we should start talking about the episode because I see Terry over there trying not to jump out of her seat already with a big grin on her face.
It was a good episode.
Well, it doesn't help that we start in Chicago. Who lives there?
Yeah.
And then we go to Ireland. Who researches that? And then, oh my God, there was somebody put in jail. Oh my gosh, who knows forbidden ancestors?
Sometimes I had to pause the TV and be like, I've been there.
It was the trifecta.
That's right.
Terry, I've really got to go to Chicago to do research, so can I stay with you for a couple of months?
She'll rent out the room. Just ask.
Well, I could ask a few other people that I know there, and I could bounce back and forth around.
Valerie going to go couch surfing.
Better than dumpster diving.
Go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say it was definitely a great episode, and I just want to say this. Did you notice anything different about this episode?
There was nothing positive about any of his ancestors.
Besides that.
besides it having a good Irish theme to it.
And actually, there was some good out of it. You just had to wait.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you mean like in how they told it, or I'm not sure because
In the
each
setup
one's
of
unique.
the whole thing, there was something that was missing each segment.
Well, the women.
Well, that too. I've read a lot of complaints about that he didn't want to know about the women.
Well, not necessarily they didn't want to know about the women, but they didn't. They might have left on the cutting room floor, but they didn't tell us about his grandmother or great grandmother, or
Right.
it was
Yeah.
focusing on the men and how they got to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Terry. Jen,
All right,
Valerie,
here it
do
is.
either
I'll
of you
tell you.
have?
They
I
never
don't have a
Right.
clue.
showed a family tree.
They what?
They never showed a family tree.
That's true,
You're
and I
right.
never noticed.
I watched
Oh,
it
that's
times
right.
to make sure that I was
Well,
not
and
missing.
they know any computer. Really, not that I can remember.
Well, he started off on Ancestry.
Yeah, they
remember?
started off on Ancestry
start on
after he
Ancestry?
looked at the letter from his brother and the photos.
And when he was in the archives here in Chicago, they went to Ancestry again and looked at census records. So,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, there was no tree. They when they showed the census, they clipped his father's name so you couldn't see it.
I think it's because he's still alive. How much you want to bet?
Very
Yeah.
possibly. Very
Mhm.
possibly. But I was really intrigued that even as they went up and got to William and was it William and Barbara, there was just no tree going up. There was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was quite easy to follow, being that they stayed on the Hayes line. But I just thought that was very, very different.
Yeah, because they're usually, even if it's a straight line, they will show you the progression through the people's
Exactly.
names.
So,
Well, and
that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the who do you think you are background, and then they have the white lines and then the names. They did that.
Mm-mm.
I thought so.
Oh, now she's going to go look. Throw down.
Get out the credit card.
I
Pay
just
for
watched it about an hour ago.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so I watched it, last time I watched it was last night, but I don't remember that, and Terry's right. Now, if we're wrong, somebody please comment and prove us wrong, but I'll go with Terry's opinion on this one.
I'll go down that rabbit hole tonight.
Telling the story about all these men leaving, and Sean's father, like you said, is most likely still alive, because he did make comment that he doesn't have a relationship, so it's not like it was too late to have a relationship. That they probably just didn't want to show that progression, because obviously he'd probably be an easy man to find.
Right. And you know, and I got the hint, the feeling that his father was still alive, because from reading the letter, it felt to me like his brother has some sort of relationship.
Oh yeah, Dad gave me these pictures.
Right. And you know, they could have been in the past or something else, but it really felt like, and maybe it's because he was young. You know, so this was my theory. You know, he left Sean and his mother and the family when Sean was very young. So maybe he just didn't have that relationship, and maybe the older brother did, because he was significantly
That's
older.
possible too.
You don't really know. I mean, there's all sorts of things why somebody could be estranged from a family member.
Absolutely.
So, but
Absolutely.
if he's alive, it would make sense why they didn't show that information, because you would have to gain someone's permission before you put that on national television.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Even if it is a census
Here
record.
I'm telling you a story.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I think the whole progression of the story was very interesting, because it seems like it was, you know, man after man that just they left the family, they up and left the family.
The same
Well, I'm
same pattern.
Yeah, now for Patrick Sr., I'm not sure it's leaving the family.
No,
as
he
so
didn't.
much- I don't think he did. His wife died, but I think the pattern of alcoholism is there.
Probably.
You know, because it sounds like his wife died and the kids, you know, were old enough to essentially take care of themselves, right? And
Sort of.
But, you know,
Yeah.
he probably fell into some sort of, you know, a depression or alcoholism, or you insert it from, you know, whatever tragic circumstances.
Right.
But I'm not sure that there was any, you know, necessarily given to us. Now, maybe there was we just didn't see it,
Mhm.
proof that he physically left the family. Now, Patrick
No, I think it was
physically left the family for America.
right.
Yeah.
But I think that when you look at the whole story, with his mom dying, he was Patrick Jr. was about 11ish, I think they said. And that starts that whole thing where he's lost one parental unit at that age, and it has carried forward,
And then his mom.
whether it be the mother or the father with alcoholism or whatever the issue may be.
Right.
Continue. So.
Now, there was one thing that, when I was watching the episode, I really wanted to know what happened to Barbara.
She had broken both hips.
Well, right, but why didn't she come back to get the kids?
I kind of wondered.
Didn't say she didn't. No, because he went from the orphanage to the army to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I want to go one step further back.
Okay.
What happened to the marriage?
Right.
There was
no,
no discussion of divorce.
Right. He could have just abandoned the family. Could have just left.
True.
Well, I
But
kind
what
of
happened?
wondered if there was a connection between her breaking her hips and the families.
Yeah, I thought about
I mean,
that
I'm reading a lot into that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if he was already gone, did they give a year when he
He
was
died.
on
He died in
the
51, and if I remember correctly, and she was in the hospital and gave the kids up in 47.
47.
So that
So
was.
when did he arrive in on Van Buren Street? We'd have to look at the
You'd have to go look at the records because it didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
to look for directories.
Yeah. But that's a good. I mean, that's a good question. It was something I was wondering about too because, I mean, I know a lot of people. Because there was an episode on Genealogy Roadshow, which happened in Chicago about the same time for an orphanage in Chicago, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily that she wanted to give up the kids, but she couldn't take care of them and then
Correct.
couldn't come back to get them, right?
Correct.
So it might be one of those instances, but
Mhm.
it kind of left me hanging. I was like,
Right.
well, what happened to her? And the
Well-
other thing go ahead.
I was going to say, I know when he started off in Chicago, he was at the Chicago History Museum, and I believe that they do have some of the old orphanage records.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious as to, was that the reason they went into the orphanage? Did they go before Mom was hurt?
Mhm.
Did they come and visit? Because if she couldn't take care of them and that's why they stayed, usually they were sending, could they send money? Did they come and visit on the weekends when they weren't working? It would be nice to pull that full story together.
And of course, the other thing I was curious about is because they didn't say if William's father, Patrick Jr., was still alive or not, because there was the hint that he might have been or he might not have been.
From
From
the
Well, they had his address, so if he wasn't alive,
it's physically possible. I mean, he would have been in his 70s, I think.
mhm.
So he theoretically in 51 could have still been alive too. So I would have been interested in finding out even if they had any contact with the kids or the family or.
That would be very.
Sherry, you're awfully quiet over there. What did you like about the show?
I was intrigued that he was able to go get those medical records, and I'm thinking about those ancestors that I have, or hospital reason or another, and wondering if I could, if they're that easily obtained, or I've not tried that.
I'm wondering if he had to file.
Has
like
anybody tried getting medical records?
No.
I have,
What do you think?
unfortunately, about 6 months, this was in Colorado Springs, about 6 months prior to me being there to get the records, and I would have been able to get them. It was during the time where they purged,
Oh.
And after so many years, they were destroyed, and it was 6 months, just 6 months before I got there. So it's like,
Man.
So I don't know the medical library at Cook County Hospital if they have them, back to the beginning.
Was the library part of Cook County Hospital? Because I think they just said medical library, and I'm wondering if it was
medical library.
Medical library.
So I know in most states, and obviously you're going to have to check local regulations and all that kind of stuff, you have to be a proven next of kin or have like a power of attorney, need to know those types of things to get medical records. Now, that was also a police report intake record.
True. Yes, it
so
was.
that can fall under different regulations because it's a police intake medical record type thing. And even though it's medical, maybe it's different because it was a police intake form.
Okay.
Were they both part of the police intake, or was just the first one?
The first one was.
I think it was the first one, but it was all in one file.
Yeah, and then there was the hospital admission record.
Right.
And then the doctor's synopsis report.
Right. So I don't know if that was attached to the police record or if they were two separate files that they just happened to put in the same file folder and not separate out. Which would have driven me crazy because if they were two separate files, separate them, darn it.
Well, I do know that our the Chicago Police Department does have an archive. I have talked to current police officers about trying to find out some information from like the 50s and stuff like that. And I've never gotten anything that I was looking for, but I know that there's the capability of, I think if you just get the right person.
Right.
Well, I was excited to hear that because the address was in one of the 3 slums in Chicago, but that he didn't die there. He died in the hospital, and so it's like, I said, oh, good, because picturing in the slums, in the gutter, it's like, oh no, it's bad enough with everything else that was being found out, but at least that it was in the hospital. So.
Yeah. Right, and there goes that family story. It kind of makes sense why the family thought he died in the gutter because he was living in that neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that it was the hospital admission record that gave the next generation's name back. You just never know where you're going to find that.
Yeah, did you guys notice on his death certificate, it did list both of his parents? They didn't say it in the episode. Maybe they cut it.
I'll go back and watch. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, because I kept waiting. I'm like, look, it says Patrick and Jeannie, and it has towns. Are they going to point it out?
I did not even see that.
Yeah, it's because I read ahead.
I did a lot of pausing in the first time, and the second time I was just trying to pull information out of it. So
right.
Yeah.
What I thought was really cool is that he really wanted to see the hospital, and Cook. I had to laugh, being that he's in TV. Cook County Hospital was the setting for ER.
Yeah.
Outside because it's been plastered for years across NBC.
Yeah, right.
So it was cute.
He doesn't watch TV.
Yeah, it was cute though. It's massive.
It is.
I noticed and thought was funny is when he went into one of the places downtown. I think it was. And he was walking into the big glass building, and someone did this as he walked by.
That was the Daily Center.
And I'm like,
yes,
they figured out that a famous person just walked by him. The camera crew didn't give it away.
So that was cool because that was the Daily Center. The archives are on the 11th floor, and it's this little itty bitty room. Don't turn, you'll hit somebody. It's really, really tiny. And outside, when you saw him, you could see there was something going on outside. You saw it kind of almost looking like tents, and it was, I don't know what month it was, but it's the Kindle Market, which they do before the holidays every year. It's like the whole German thing. I had to have been up in the archives maybe a week or two before they filmed. Because they were talking about that show called, and they want us to, and they didn't seem, I think it was more of an inconvenience. And then I forgot about it. I totally forgot about it. And when they said he's going to Chicago, I was like, ah!
Oh my gosh, I must have missed that part. Now I got to go back and rewatch it somehow, because I must have had my face down taking notes.
It's really subtle, because, the narrator's talking and it's just him walking, but there's this person in the background who stops and kind of does a, what?
Now, I will tell you, walking into that building, it's very daunting. It's like going through security at the airport, because you have to go through your lines, drop it, take your coat off, take everything off, put it through the bin. It's kind of a pain. And there's always a ton of people. So I don't go often.
Well, see, another reason why I got to go to the archives, because, I got the hint or reminder that the immigration records are there. And, of course, my family on both sides, Grandma and Grandpa, were there. And and then to find out, it was cool when they said that he was a motorman, which probably meant that he was a streetcar. And my great grandfather was a streetcar conductor in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
there are a lot of little tie-ins with this episode too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Valerie, you had another little tie-in that you wanted to tell us about, didn't you?
Yes. You want to wait till we get to the Ireland part, or go for it now?
We have about 5 to 10 minutes left, so...
Oh!
We haven't even touched Ireland.
I know, so we should probably move on to Ireland. Who cares about Chicago? No, wait.
Well, I will just say that I was really glad to see that they did find his naturalization very quickly, and that it had, like, I came on this ship, I'm from this town, because I know my older naturalization stuff, it's very, very minimal as to what information I've.
Yeah, when they were starting to look at that, I was getting jealous, because I have my Engel family came to Chicago in, I think it was 1888, and I was like, just look a couple years back. Come on, do me a favor.
Yeah, it was good to see that all that information was truly there for him to move on.
Yeah,
so I have to say, when he said, "So what's next?" and she said, "Go to Ireland."
Yeah.
There was still more work he could have done online.
Yes.
But it's more fun to take a trip.
Yeah. Somebody else is footing the bill. So
that cracks me up, because last time on our chat I mentioned how many total hours, and I had to mention that again to another group this week. 1,991 hours is put into 42 minutes, but it's like, keep on with it. Let's go. Let's have more detail. Don't go to Ireland yet. I'm still wanting to be in Chicago.
You're right. There's so much more you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I have a lot to say, and I'm blogging. I have a blog post going tomorrow, and I'll have a couple more going out after this.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Just because it's very interesting.
I love the Ireland records, into the actual
I appreciate it.
record book.
Hang on. Sherry, what were you saying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying I really liked and appreciated the fact that as he looked at the records, he would say, with this information, what do I do next? Where does this take me? What's the next step? And I'm thinking maybe those people who aren't watching it, okay, I have to teach this and still teach them a little bit, but now what? What do I do now with it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I did like those questions. He seemed to be really into it and wanting to know where to go and how to go and what information take along. So maybe he'll continue his searching in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was all in. Right there.
So in Ireland, they went to a prison.
Well, they started out at the National Archives.
Oh, okay. All right, let's sound posh. Your pinkies in the air and say that we went to the archives.
Went to the archives. Yes. And they looked at, the first thing they looked at, which I found interesting, was the 1901 census for the prison in Tralee, Schedule K. Very important, because I've been looking at the census information trying to find him on it, and I can't find Schedule K information for the 1901 census on the National Archives website. I think it's the National Archives it goes through. So I haven't found that yet. But that was really cool.
Yeah. So here's something that I don't know how many people picked up on, but speaking of censuses that I found interesting, because on the 1930 U.S. Census, it listed Patrick and his family. And did you see where it listed they were born?
Yeah, Irish Free State, absolutely.
Irish Free State.
Irish Free State, yes.
And of course, my husband and I looked at each other and I said, it's the U.S. Census. They put the current country on the census record, even though when he was born,
it was Ireland.
It was Ireland.
Yeah.
So that also gives you an idea of, it should give people a clue as to where he was born. So you know which set, you're dealing with the Republic of Ireland and not Northern Ireland.
Right. You got 6 counties you can cross off your list. That's right.
Hey, it's 6 less you have to search. I don't want to hear it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, but go ahead. You were talking about the next record set.
Well, I was just it was just weird that so I haven't been able to find that one. Because when we got to Ireland and we followed the records, we followed court records, obviously. We followed nothing that truly tied the family together until you got to the very last record that said Patrick Jr., Patrick's. It didn't even say his son. It just said that they brought the case to court against the other one.
Right.
We're obviously saying their family. I'm sure they've done the research and they know that they're family, but there was no records on the show that proved the family without a doubt.
Right. Yeah. Part of me wonders if they looked at birth registries.
Baptismal records at that point would have been the only thing.
In the 1870s?
Oh, no. Then there's civil registration.
There's civil registration.
Yeah. But yeah, did they look at that? Did they look at the baptismal records? Because baptismal records are there, because I've looked at those already. I was curious as to why they didn't show them.
Because they had a theme.
Yes,
and there's only so much time.
Right, and you know what? But once again, they might have showed him everything, and then the editors picked a theme to go down for the story.
They just clicked. Right, exactly. It could have cutting room floor. I get it. But that was actually what put me down the rabbit hole. Was where's the family connection coming in? How are we connecting them? So I've spent most of yesterday looking at Irish records.
Oh, what a shame.
I know, it was terrible. Terrible. But Valerie, we're very interested. Tell us about your court thing, because that was very cool.
Oh, and that was the next thing. Right when they were leaving to go to a commercial before they went to the courthouse, Sean had said, "I'm going to be standing in the same spot." And the hair on my neck and arms just stood up, and I got goosebumps, because that was me in Montana. And I'll go ahead and go to screen share, because I was fortunate to have an ancestor that had good dirt on. And my great-grandfather's niece's husband had to go to court. And I went there. It's Jefferson County, Montana. And you can see it on your screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the inside of the courthouse and the site for the sedition trial for Charles Zastrow. Caroline, his wife, is my great-grandfather's niece. And so you see where the judge would have sat. And then my other picture is the jury box there on the left, and then the chair he would have had to sit in.
Wow.
Cushion wouldn't have been there then.
No, I don't think so. Or if it was, they probably would have yanked it out from underneath him, right? But poor old Charles never did make it to court that day, because the night before he went out to the shed. They lived about 2 miles outside of Clancy, and he shot himself 3 times in the head. I can't imagine trying to commit suicide. You shot yourself twice in the head. You're still alive, and have the enough even strength to go for the 3rd shot that finally does you in. But sedition is where I'll go ahead and minimize that. It's where you spoke badly about the United States. And it's a juicy story. My file is, this is only half of it, the court case, and it just says that in April of 1918, the said Charles Zastrow did willfully, feloniously, and unlawfully utter and publish disloyal, profane, violent, contemptuous, slurring, and abusive language about the form of government of the United States, the Constitution of the United States, soldiers and sails of the United States, the flag, and the uniform of the Army and Navy into contempt, scorn, I don't know what the next word means, and disrepute, and at the time when the U.S. was engaged in war.
Wow.
Yeah, so when Sean was actually standing there and he was so excited, he goes, they were actually right here. And it's like, yes, yes. And I'm glad that they sat there and looked at some more records from there, and to look at the actual record books. So, but yeah.
That was very cool. Yeah.
Yep. And then when he said, this is one, I'm surprised they didn't bleep it out. This is one effed up family.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so funny.
Yeah, I cracked up when he said that. I was like, whoa, I'm surprised they let that through.
Or his, holy moly.
I'm on TV. I can't say it.
And oh my gosh, did the archivist Shane from the Island National Archives went out there with him, and he had extracted the Petty Sessions Court. Did you see the length and the amount of time?
Like 3 pages, wasn't it?
Yeah, list of 1864 to 1914, something like that. I was like,
wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But it was really sad, really, really sad.
Did we get a birth year for Patrick Sr.?
There was an estimated one, I thought.
Okay, so if Patrick Jr. was born in
1879.
79, so at the very least, you know, to go back 20 years, you've got 59. So he was probably born like during the famine, right after the famine. You kind of got to wonder what was his family life like as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I was confused when you said Barbara. I was thinking of Patrick Sr.'s wife, Bridget, who died, and that's when Sr. started drinking. It affected the children. You know, the horrible things that, you know, that can all affect the family.
Oh, yeah.
And it was from reading a book that had nothing to do with genealogy, but this particular topic of alcoholism that started me into my genealogy pursuit.
Really?
Really?
Watching this and you know, listening to everybody who's complained about he only wanted to know about the men, he didn't want to know about the women. He truly went on a self-discovery path and learned why his family is the way it is. And he said it very well at the end. I can learn to I can learn to forgive, but I won't forget. You know, I will tell you, with my Irish ancestors, it's the very same thing. You know, my grandfather was an alcoholic. You know, my dad, when I got my grandfather's divorce papers and learned really about his second marriage, it made my family life make sense. So I think that this was an important road that he took. No matter what people are saying, it was a very important road for him to just be able to find peace with his life. I mean, because he said I did the same thing. At 21, I got in my car and I left. I had to get away.
Right.
So,
Oh,
you know.
Right.
Yeah, the tears came down, rolling down my face when he says about his ancestor saying, I'm 21 years old, I just can't take this anymore, and to leave. And, it's good that he did, and to be able to have some positive prosperousness, but then look what ended up. So, yeah, very, very touching story, and why I just encourage everyone, you may not like what you find out,
Right.
but it makes so much sense to make that whole person,
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the most important things that they showed this one. It wasn't, my ancestor was this great historical figure, or, we did all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
There are sad stories out there, and they're part of all of our family.
It makes each of us who we are.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I also think that what's important is, one, this is something that now all his siblings are armed with to move forward. What if him and his husband decide to adopt and have children? He's learned what he needs to hopefully overcome everything that he's been through, that his ancestors fallen through.
Right.
So, definitely a good one.
Well, on that note, does anyone have any last thoughts for the episode before we close this evening?
I might have a little teaser.
Oh,
good.
And I believe that Patrick Sr. remarried. You stay tuned.
Okay.
That it might explain the knife. No, sorry.
Or the rock.
Or the rock.
The stone.
Yeah.
All right, well, ladies, if no one has any last little comments for this evening, last chance. Going once. Okay, I think we've talked ourselves out. That's pretty amazing. Well, next week we will be talking about the next episode of Who Do You Think You Are, which will feature Tony Goldwyn. It looked pretty amazing from the ads that I have seen for it, and there was something about a scandal, so Terry should be just right up her alley again.
Yay.
So, yeah, I know, she loves the scandal.
Yeah.
Who
that
doesn't
good
like
dirt.
That's right. Who doesn't like a good gossip story, right? So remember, everyone, we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comments below, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or send us an email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, have a great day, and remember to always go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.